Steve, you said something a year ago about AI that I think I've had probably a dozen people quote to me since then, which is you said not only was AI changing the way that you run Blackstone, but it was changing the way you thought about value in companies. That there were a lot of companies that were multi-billion dollar companies that were going to be $0 billion companies, and things people thought were $0 billion companies that might be multi-billion dollar companies. I'm wondering, as you've kind of advanced in your commercial thinking about the intersection of what you do at your business with AI, what are you seeing in that regard? How is it changing, both, I guess, to some degree, the inside of how you're running Blackstone, but I think I'm more interested in the question of how does it affect the nature of the value of the businesses that are out there already?
Well, I think, as I said last year, Josh, some businesses really adapt extremely well to aspects of AI, and other ones not as much. And so, we always take this into account now. When we're looking at any potential investment, it was good to be a young person now because you can have AI help doing your models. I struggled with that when I started. I wasn't much of a numbers guy. So we see things that types. They can even do a bunches of first drafts of investment committee memos, which that surprised me as well. We see this moving along quite well for us, but it's, I've kept people's expectations low, but their fear high. And we can't be ostriches, sort of with our heads in the sand, not understanding the profound nature as this technology really starts rapidly developing.
One of the things on that point, just on risk, one of the things you've certainly pounded into my head over the years is just the way you think about risk. I've rarely encountered anybody who is as kind of both philosophical and tactical in thinking about risk. Has AI changed the way you run your risk meetings, the way you price risk into investments?
Well, I have a saying: there are no brave old people in the investment business, it's always good to be concerned about what can go wrong, and this gives us a dual look. It shows us, what can go right and really make something work. And it also shows us that there are just certain business areas you don't want to touch because AI can just rip your heart out once it gets developed. It doesn't have to be, we make investments. We're not like stock investors who can trade out of something if they don't like it. We own hard assets. And so we have to look at something over a 5 and 10 year period and sort of assess. I was going to use the word guess, but I like assess better. What's going to happen to that kind of business if AI develops in a certain way? And there'll be big winners, and there'll also be losers. We just don't want them to be, sort of unexpected losers. So that's how we look at it. It's totally part of the way we look at things now.
Speaking of academic environments, Steve, I think you've been probably the largest single philanthropic donor to academic work on AI. And I'm curious, Steve, you're just generally a very large philanthropic donor. How did you pick AI as a subject area, and how do you think about the distinction between the work that you've done in academia, the work to be done in industry?
Well, I think I didn't pick it. It picked me. Started an AI ethics operation at Oxford as part of a new humanities center I gave. And I did that because as everybody's rushing to STEM, and appropriately so, I saw the need to integrate that with sort of what happens to humans out of all this stuff, because it's going to change what human beings do 10, 20 years from now. And you have to think through some of that stuff. It also gets you into regulation and a variety of other things. I'm interested in the whole regulatory apparatus globally because people who work with this technology have a healthy respect for what can go wrong with it.
Do you have a view about what does a great AI university of the future look like? And what's the relationship between the kind of work you're doing and the kind of energy that's going on there and the way that traditional university environments are trying to adjust to the world today?
Well, what's interesting is that universities are now at a disadvantage compared to the commercial world. And the breakthroughs are really going on the commercial side because they can afford all the compute time that you need to do the development. So I think you're gonna have a different structure over time. The universities still have super smart people, but they're somewhat handicapped in this race. And you're gonna have to have alliances, I think, over time in a much more thoughtful way that comes from just sponsoring a professor or something in their research. And that change is going to enable the universities where, frankly, so much of the knowledge base in the companies started in those university settings. So there's going to be more of a melding between those, if you were asking me to speculate.